Welcome to the October 28th, 2020 Pittsburgh Board of Public Education and the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Units virtual legislative meeting. Would everyone please rise so we can salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the
the
flag
flag
of
of the United States of America
and
and
to
to
the
the
republic
Republic.
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, I always thought I was on mute. I wasn't.
All right, thank you, everyone. All right, before we begin our legislative meeting today, we actually have a special, some special remarks being given today. Miss Cindy Falls is going to lead us in this. And Cindy, I was going to say something more, but I'll just let you go ahead. But
No,
you're muted. Okay.
Miss Wilson, please do, please.
I was just going to say this special presentation, this special guest today that we'll be talking about is in regarding Gene Fink. Gene Fink served 33 years on the board of the Pittsburgh Public Education, and that is a feat that no one else has ever even gotten close to. So she has passed away recently. We regret that that has occurred, but we also recognize the amount of things that she has done for the city of Pittsburgh, for families and for children. And so I'm going to lead this now and turn this over to Ms. Falls.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson, and I do appreciate and want to respect your position as board president to have opened that. Thank you. I do believe on our Zoom, we do have some of Ms. Fink's family. Is there some way we can drop this down a little and then put it back up so that people can be seen? Is there some way we can do that?
Charles, I think it's really hard for Deb to get this up.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I know that there are some members of Miss Fink's family here, and I do want to thank you for coming and joining us. I'd like to share with you a letter that came from the Pennsylvania School Board Association. This letter was sent to the Fink family, and the signed letter, and we also have a signed letter, and Miss Laura will show you, we have a frame for it, and this letter will be going in the board hall for people to be able to read and to appreciate what this letter expresses. So, if I may, PSBA, Dear Ms. Falls, it is my honor and privilege to present to the Pennsylvania School Board Association, PSBA, to remember Gene Fink for her years of service to the Pittsburgh School Board in Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit Number 2. With Mrs. Fink's recent passing, we are called on to always remember her as a champion for local schools. She also timelessly in her community through her volunteer work with the Cary Community Council and the Overbrook Parent Teachers Association. For more than 30 years, Jean served as a school board director, earning several honor roll certificates from PSBA for her dedication and service to public education. She is also a past president of the Pittsburgh School District Board of Education. The legacy of school board service in Pennsylvania is firmly embedded in the history of our nation and its commitment to public education in Pennsylvania as one of the founding colonies of the United States, clearly establishing the concept of schooling in its first constitution in 1776. Later, the Free School Act of 1834 marked the first permanent state interest in public education in the birth of the local elected school boards. Jean worked tirelessly to represent the legacy of public education by demonstrating its worth through her work as a school board director. Therefore, in recognition and memory of Mrs. Fink's life of service, I would like to offer our deepest sympathy to the Pittsburgh School District and to Jean's family. Public education has lost an ambassador. Sincerely, James E. Somerville, PSBA Member Service Manager. And again, the family has received this letter and it will be hung in the board hallway. Having said that, I want to share with you some of my personal experience because this is our story together. Carol Jean Fink, 75 years old. I started to teach in 1992 at Oliver High School. In 1995, I was transferred to Carrick High School. Jean, as I knew her, was Mrs. Fink, my school board director. As I was building a 3-level health technology academy, I saw Mrs. Fink at major school functions. She would speak cordially to each and every person, and eventually I got to know her better, as we were both members of the Cary Community Council Board of Directors. We worked together on many community projects. I thought how wonderful for my school board director to be so active in our community. Me, Overbrook, Jean, Carrie, all united in more communities. Over the years, Jean and I became friends. Her and I would go round and round over PPS things, especially when we disagreed. I was very angry when career and technical education programs were cut. How could you let this happen, Jean? I would say to her with tears in my eyes. Why would anyone cut the program teaching our students how to be great parents with hands-on experience? Why would anyone cut the carpentry program? Jean, you know what carpentry has meant to the Fink family. There were some words or phrases that I think best describe Jean Fink. Fun-loving, dedicated wife, motorcycle mama, extraordinary and amazing mother and grandmother, fabulous cook and baker, outstanding sewer. She made both my mother and I a Steeler jacket, in addition to making clothes and gowns for her family members. I will treasure that jacket. She was an avid dog admirer. She engaged in community activities. She was knowledgeable and wise and a very school and in her school board director's position. Served 33 years. She was 31 years old for the first time she ran for office and 69 years old when she turned the baton to me. Loyal friend, loved going to the casinos, and played the lottery. Many of these details were gathered from an article written by Eleanor Shute on November 29th from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette entitled, Frank, Informed Voice of Jean Fink Leaves Pittsburgh School Board After 33 Years. Many of these details are from that article. Jean Fink was the only board member, the only woman board member that was on the Pittsburgh School Board when the members went from being appointed to elected in 1976. She fought for this event, calling on disproportionate members from the East End and a lack of knowing neighborhoods. She represented her region well, but was always aware of making decisions in the best interest of the district and the city. Jean originally was in favor of the early desegregation plan but didn't go far enough. But then in 1982, district losing in court, she eventually voted for the desegregation plan. Darlene Harris, former school board member, now on Pittsburgh City Council, they would meet on weekends at Miss Harris's home, calling department heads looking for ways to trim the budget. If Jean had a problem at one of her schools, she was there, Johnny on the spot. She had a home phone that was just like an office number. Anyone could reach her. Jean said, I am 69 years old. I was 31 when I first ran. The issues are a lot different. The school district is a lot different, she said. Her remarks regarding the board, Ms. Fink said, I've made some good decisions. I have probably made some bad decisions, but I have always did it because I really and truly am a community person that loved the kids. I love the school system. It's just time, said Miss Fink. Many, many, many people have stories that they have shared about Jean. When Jean asked me if I would be interested in running for District 7 school board director, my response to her was, are you crazy? You folks made my life heck, quote unquote, for 20 plus years. 3 weeks passed and I called Jean and asked her if I could come down to her home and talk. And of course she said yes. After a long discussion, I said, yes, Jean, I will run for school board director for District 7. All of my life, my philosophy has been, if you're going to do the talk, do the walk, especially to my students. I called Jean several times asking for some guidance and some background on some of our issues. Jean was my school board director, my community partner, my mentor, and my friend. Thank you to all of you, and especially to thank Jean's family for sharing her for all those years. Her love for each and every one of you and those that are deceased was always first and foremost in her life. All of our students, parents, guardians, staff, administration, our community friends, politicians, past and present, say thank you, Jean Fink, for all of your years of service. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. And again, thank you to the Fink family, and she will forever be part of me in my heart. Thank you.
Does Mrs. Fink's daughter Peggy or Melissa want to say one or two words?
You know, I'm Jean Fink's granddaughter, and I have many things to say about my grand, but one thing I'll say is that she was so proud of the Carrick marching band. When I was younger, she used to take me to the All City Band Festival when I was in 7th or 8th grade, and she'd tell me, one day you're going to be on that field. And when I reached high school, it was either I was going to join Cindy Falls and do the health, or join Mr. Krause and join the band. And I knew that my gram supported me and wanted me on that field. And in my senior year, I was the one wearing that white uniform, standing up and directing my band. It made me so proud to make her so proud. And we thank you for this time and all the nice words you said, Cindy. I remember when you were thinking about running, and my gram was so supportive, and she wanted you on that school board so much. I remember so many times that you've called, and so many times that my gram said, I got to get her in there, and I'm glad that you're there. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Hugs, Melissa. I love you.
Peggy?
You.
I guess not. We're not hearing from Peggy. All right, then we have just one other person that asked to speak. Mr. Weiss.
I just want to make a couple of comments. I've had the privilege of being affiliated with the school district since 1996 in various ways, doing various legal services and a solicitor for about 16 years. And as most of you know, I deal with a lot of school boards and have dealt with a lot of school boards for close to 50 years. One of the tough parts of this job is to say goodbye to friends and say goodbye to people you work with. Dean Fink was an excellent board member.
Debbie, can you get me a Kleenex?
She asked no one to do anything that she wouldn't do. And I mean this as the greatest compliment. She always gave it to you straight. If you ask her a question, she told you what she thought. And we're all going to miss her. I miss her. And I'm pleased that her family is here. But she was really an excellent board member, an excellent person. And as has been said by Cindy several times, with Jean, it all began and ended with the students in the school district and the family. So rest in peace, Jean. We miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. And I want to thank all of you for your indulgence as we gave honor to Jean Fink this evening. Because
Thank you.
anyone who has spent this much time in service to the city, to our schools, to our families is certainly deserving to have a little bit of time being shared with everyone.
Thank you. I want to really thank and my colleagues and the board administration for allowing this to take place in the form that it should have. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. All right, folks. It's a hard transition, but that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to move now into our Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit virtual legislative meeting. This is something that Ms. Bear handles for us. We will start, however, with Mr. Weiss having a roll call for this portion of the meeting.
Mr. Carr,
Here.
Ms. Edwards,
Here.
Ms. Falls,
Present.
Mr. Gallagher,
Here.
Mrs. Harbin,
Here,
Mrs. Kennedy,
present.
Delafaro,
Here.
Mr. Udine,
Here.
Ms. Wilson,
Here.
all members present.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. All right, at this time, board members have had time to review the minutes from the September 23rd, 2020 meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to these minutes at this time? All right, hearing none, then I would like to have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of that September 23rd legislative meeting for the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit.
Terry, so moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved by Mrs. Kennedy and seconded by Ms. Falls. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, ayes have it. So we will now move to the, well, excuse me, there were no items for the committee report on education this month. However, there were some items on the committee report on business finance that includes agenda items 24.01 through 26.03. That is now before you. Are there any questions or comments that were not answered at agenda review? All right, hearing none, Mr. Weiss, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Can I make a motion that we so move to vote on this report before we have a vote?
Oh, yeah, I do. We have to do that. Sorry, Miss Kennedy. It's just trying to get it over all the
I
time.
know, I
real
know, I
quickly.
know.
Okay, Miss Kennedy made the motion and is seconded by Miss Falls. All right, now, Mr. Weiss, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Okay, just for clarity, Mr. Weiss, we're voting on everything on the education.
this is
Sec-
the IU business report.
Oh, God. Okay, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
It's fine. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mrs. Harbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Delafarrow,
Yes.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
All, it's approved unanimously.
All right, thank you. Item 28.01 is the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit's Financial and Travel Report for September 2020. Are there any questions or comments on these reports? All right, thank you. Hearing none. And before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I just want to thank Ms. Bear for being available for any possible questions. So having no more further questions or comments, could I now please have a motion and a second to adjourn?
So moved, Terry.
Second,
Okay, Mrs. Kennedy and Ms. Falls. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, the ayes have it. We didn't have to do any more. All right, let us now move to the October 28th virtual meeting of the Pittsburgh Public Schools. We are now coming to order. And Mr. Weiss, could we have a roll call for this portion of the meeting?
Carter,
Here.
Ms. Edwards, Ms. Edwards. We'll come back. Ms. Falls,
present.
Gallagher,
Present.
we'll take Mrs. Kennedy,
Present. You forgot Miss Harbin between Mr. Gallagher and me.
excuse me, Ms. Harbin,
Here.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Present.
Delafarrow,
Here.
Mr. Dean,
Here.
Ms. Wilson,
Here.
Ms. Edwards, are you on? We'll mark her as present because she was present for the last meeting. Thank you. All present.
Thank you. Thank you. She might be still having trouble logging on. Clicking over for her. She was having trouble earlier, but we know she's here. All right, at this time, I would like to ask Ms. Devin Telfair to please share our core beliefs and commitments.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Core beliefs and commitments. Number 1, we will educate all children to the highest level of academic achievement. Number 2, we will provide a safe and orderly environment for all students and employees. Number 3, we will provide efficient and effective support for all students, families, teachers, and administrators. Number 4, we will distribute resources in an efficient and equitable manner to address the needs of all students to the maximum extent feasible. And number 5, we will improve public confidence and encourage strong parent community engagement in the district. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Ms. Telfair. All right, at this time, with board members, please, we've had time to review the minutes. Today, we'll be approving those for September 23rd. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? All right, hearing none, could I please have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the September 23rd meeting?
So moved.
Terry,
That was
second.
Ms. Telfair and Ms. Kennedy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, my gosh.
Aye. I heard Ms. Edwards, so she's on. Okay. The ayes have it. The minutes stand as approved. At this time, I'd like to read the executive session statement. In addition to executive sessions announced at the legislative meeting of September 23rd, the board met virtually in executive sessions on October 21st and immediately before this legislative meeting to discuss various personnel matters that may include but are not limited to administrative vacancies and positions opened and closed. The board does not vote at executive sessions. The committee report on education is now being submitted by myself, Sylvia Wilson, as the chairperson in my committee. The report includes agenda items 5.01 through 8.14. And I think at this time, Mrs. Jones has something to say.
Yes, Ms. Wilson, the administration will be pulling 8.13 Code of Conduct.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Jones. All right, are there any further questions or concerns in this report having to do with Committee on Education? Anyone? All right, no further questions or concerns. So may I have a motion and a second to have a roll call vote on this report?
Terry, so moved.
Ms. Kennedy, but I didn't hear the other voice.
With me, Devin.
Okay, Ms. Telefaro, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Weiss, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Gallagher,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvin,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Talafaro,
Yes.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Report's approved unanimously.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weiss. We're now going to move on to the committee report on business and finance that is submitted by Mr. Kevin Carter, the chairperson in his committee. The report includes agenda items 9.01 through 12.12. Item 12.11, there were revisions to the health and safety plan. This item was pulled for further discussion at agenda review. We can begin that discussion now on this item.
Excuse me, Ms. Wilson, I have one change to make to item 10.10.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Joseph.
So for item 10.10, the not to exceed amount will change from $80,000 to $94,000. So the new amount is $94,000 as a not to exceed amount. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right.
I would just like to point out, Ms. Wilson, that item 12.12. Give me a second here, I'll tell you. 12.10 is the sale of the Arlington primary building for board members who may have not seen that or not aware.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. I think we kind of looked at that last week, but that's okay. All right, there were some people that had some questions about 12.11. I'm not seeing any hands at this moment.
I do have a question, Ms. Wilson.
Go ahead, Ms. Harbin.
So I know that after our meeting, the CDC did change the requirements for 15 minutes within 6 feet to include within 24 hours. Did we make that change in the health and safety plan?
Pam Corpretta here, Chief Operations Officer. So we have made that change within our decision tree. I have physically not changed the health and safety plan as of yet because that recently changed in the last 2 days. But it will be made. It will be made.
And then we have to vote again? I'm just curious about how this, every time we change something in here, we have to
Well,
change.
we actually refer to the decision tree within the health and safety plan. So we don't have that particular detail in this health and safety plan. We merely refer to the decision tree and also in the safety plan, we discussed that we can change that decision tree as guidance changes.
So to make it clear, I just want to make sure we answer Ms. Harvin's question, Ira. So based on the fluidity of the recommendations, they may change on a daily basis, they may change on a weekly basis. Do we have to come back and vote based on those recommendation changes each time we make a change in the safety plan, health and safety plan?
There is a reference, I'm sure, to the CDC guidelines.
Okay.
And I think that means whatever the guidelines are at a particular time, because this does change. And I would also note that the county health department is taking the position that is still the 15-minute standard. They have not adopted the CDC standard, but in terms of the health and safety plan, it's written in a way that it recognizes that these guidelines are very fluid. And so it is not necessary to vote each time one of these guidelines changes, as the guidelines are just referenced in the plan.
So we just need to make sure we have a avenue to communicate this to the board and also the public. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then
Go ahead, Ms. Harvard, go ahead.
yeah, and then I had a question about in the presentation last week, it was said that the students would stay in the classroom and the teachers would.
Teachers aren't even posting.
Uh-oh, somebody's not on mute.
Yeah, I hear somebody else is speaking.
Okay.
Take your mute.
But that the students would stay in the classroom and the teachers would move. That can't happen in our high schools and middle schools, right? So students are still going to be changing classrooms, correct?
Yes, high schools and middle schools, they change. They change. So you'll have some changing in that. And hopefully some of it will be reduced, I'm sure, but there will be changing because obviously there's different classes.
Okay, thank you. Just want to clarify.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Harbin. Mrs. Kennedy?
Thank you. I'm going to actually follow up right on that question. So if I'm a high school teacher and the bell rings and I don't know, depending on the high school, how long the students have to move between this classroom and their next one, do I have sufficient time to wipe down all the desks and anything else? And will the students not be congregating outside my door while I'm doing that? Because they could be coming from the classroom next door, they could be across the hall, wherever.
We're leaving that in the principal's hands as far as the logistics of handling their building. We're giving them overarching parameters of what should be expected in there, but ultimately they have to make the best decisions for their school on an individual basis. And so I'm sure all that's be taken into consideration, because I also know that that has come up in several conversations, and they're making sure they make adjustments to that and make sure that kids aren't congregating, kids aren't getting too close together, et cetera. So that's all within the principal's specific wheelhouse to get done for their schools.
Okay, so what about for PE when we're going into the locker rooms because we have gym uniforms, or we just have to, even if we don't have gym uniforms, we need to, change into something appropriate for PE. Are we constantly cleaning down the locker rooms, or do kids share lockers in the locker rooms? I'm just curious.
No,
Like
they wouldn't be sharing lockers in the locker room because of the CDC guidelines and things of that nature. So I don't have the specifics. We can actually get those specifics for the board and provide that for the board. And again, each school might be doing something different, but there are certain minimums that can happen. As example, sharing of a locker. Okay.
All right.
Get that
So
for the board in high schools.
Locker rooms may not have space so that every child in the school has their own locker. They keep their own lock on it all school year. So if that being the case, so our kids will be, in addition to carrying their coat, their books, or computer, or whatever around, on days they have gym, they'll also be carrying their gym bag with them all day.
That may be a possibility. Absolutely.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand this from, get my head wrapped around this. So I appreciate the answers. I'd like to go revisit the quarantine area. And I'm on page 28 of the health and safety plan. And it says designation of a quarantine area close to the building entrance to be used for quarantine. Has that been able to happen in every single building?
Yes, per the re-entry plan that we provided to you, each school has a designated isolation area, a quarantine area. What we call
and it's near the school, the building entrance, because that's what it's saying on page 28.
Ms. Caprera, you want to chime in on that
I,
specific?
I am, yes. So, where physically possible, we try to make a decision related to the isolations area, nurses area, and there's several things that you need in one of those areas, but we try to, where best possible, to have that close to an exit, but not every school it would be necessarily close to an exit. Actually, some of them may actually have had an exit right out their door as well. But that's just different at every single location. And we have a team of people working on identifying and that identified those particular spaces at each school.
And I thank you for that. Now, all these dedicated spaces, physical rooms,
Yes, they would be a physical room.
okay? Because I saw a picture sent to me of one school where there was a tent-like structure in their lobby, and I was told that was the quarantine space. And this is specifically at Southbrook. And please tell me that that picture was not correct, because I don't see how you can have confidentiality in a tent. It's no soundproofing.
So we'll have to look into that, Miss Kennedy, and get back to you.
And so realizing that definitely that Southbrook and also Pioneer there are very unique situations in sharing that school, and it's limited space right now. So I'm sure they're doing the best they can to make it happen, but those are concerns that we'll bring forward and find out exactly what it's going to be for you.
And I appreciate that, because I'm very concerned about confidentiality, because we all know that sound tents are just so tents are so soundproof, it's just, that's part of it. We want, and I did listen to the testimony of the nurses over the last 2 nights, and I think they raised some good concerns related to student confidentiality or even staff confidentiality. If they have a child that's isolating and now they're dealing with somebody else, you're already having real problems with confidentiality. And of course, their ability, if they're called to another part of the building, they have to first wait for someone else to just come in and stay with that. And I will say I have concerns, and I understand there's no such thing as the best solution, but I will just say those concerns I think are very valid. So, I will say, among the too many emails I've read and seen, I've heard issues of lack of PPE being provided at the buildings. I'd have to go back and look and see which buildings. I don't know if these are isolated incidents or is this a systemic issue. I do not know, but I'm hoping that there will be sufficient PPE at all buildings for not just the staff, but the students, especially shared resources, where there's maybe, there's other stuff in the room that has to be shared for whatever reason, maybe for therapy or an IEP or something. I don't know. So.
Ms. Caprera, can you speak to allocation of PPE? I know that was a major.
Yeah, I can. I just also followed up on the Southbrook. That was not related to operations putting that tent up. I just spoke to our director of facilities. He found out as well that was erected and that will be removed. As it relates to PPE, all the schools do have PPE. We will make sure that when we send out more daily, we also have not sent out everything until we're sure that we have the arrival of students, especially as it relates to wipes. We want to send them out once everyone gets into the buildings. But I rest assured we have ample supplies of masks, cleaning solutions, bottles, wipes. We do have all that, and they are in the buildings.
Terrific. That makes me feel better, and it makes sense that you've withheld sending them all out yet. And I understand that. And also for stuff that's reusable, that's washable, do we have washing machines still in any of our schools? We used to have them in the schools with pools because we provided swimsuits and whatnot that we would then wash. And I don't know if those washing machines and stuff still exist, but if they do, I mean, because there could be a case where there's stuff that's reusable, and do we have the ability to wash them in whatever buildings would have them, or do we people have to take stuff home to wash?
Yeah, they will have to take their own mask home to wash. And I was going to make the comment that Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, that we did purchase reusable PPEs or washable PPEs. Understanding that there's going to be a shortage of those out there, but we did purchase those so they can be washed and used over and over again. Is that correct, Ms. Cabrera?
Yes, Dr. Hamlet, we purchased both small cloth masks for our smaller students, as well as larger cloth masks for our older students, as well as cloth masks for our teachers. We also received donations, and we also continue to receive donations over the past week related to those cloth masks. And as we receive them, the team that we have tries to distribute them to all the schools. And we also purchased 240,000 disposable adult masks, and we did also purchase some of the small children disposable masks as well. And we more shields, and we can get more of those out to all the schools. But we already did send enough shields face shields to the schools for every teacher. And if there's a teacher or a principal that believes they need more, they can just send an email to me in operations, and I will have whatever supplies people believe that they're short of sent out to their building.
Terrific. I appreciate the responses. Thank you very much, Ms. Capretta, Dr. Hamlet. Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. Ms. Harbin, did I see your hand go up one more time? All right, thank you. All right.
Ms. Wilson, I am. Can you then? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I just wanted people to know that Dr. Hamlet and several others and myself had a town hall with the nurses because, we wanted to make sure that some of the things that weren't just rumors, that there was, some validity to things and et cetera. And some of these issues, I will say, because it's been brought up, did have to do with supplies and did have to do with the isolation room and did have to have, responsibilities and et cetera. And I do believe that that will all be worked at. I think the nurses left that meeting feeling very hopeful. I left that meeting feeling very hopeful. And I think Dr. Hamlet and your team also, I'm hoping, felt very hopeful. I don't think, I don't think there's anything there that can't be worked out. Right?
Agreed.
Okay. But I just did want to share, because I just recently sent, because one of the nurses sent to me, and I forwarded on to several of you in the appropriate people, that there is a practical intervention prior to safe hybrid return. And it's a couple pages, and I'm just saying, this is in our Bible, but I think it wouldn't hurt for some of, to look through some of these suggestions. There's a section of unanswered questions. I think those two can be resolved when we meet again, or the next step with nurses, because this is from a certified nurse, school nurse. And also in here was listed, the list of supplies that seems to be the acceptable supply list. So I'm just saying, I think it's wonderful that we are getting participation from our staff to work as a team and to try to share information. So I want to commend, the nurses for doing that. And the one thing I do want to ask though that came out that I know, I'm hoping Ms. Capretta, you can clear up. We were told that the masks that were sent to the students only were 1 ply. Is that true?
Ms. Falls,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure
Okay.
about that.
Okay. Okay. I'm
And-
just asking because that is not really truly okay. You know, all the things that are coming out are at least saying 3 ply and etc. But I just want to make sure that we're providing our staff with the supplies that they need. And again, some people were saying that maybe the supplies so far that they have would be for a day or two. So I'm sure that we will keep a running tab on what the schools need if we're asking them to do this job under these set of circumstances. So I do want to thank you, Ms. Capretta, and the people who have worked here. And again, Dr. Hamlet, thank you for participating and being very supportive in the nurses' town hall. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Okay. Are there any questions? Mr. Eden, you want to ask your question?
Yes, I just want to make sure whether or not approval of the health and safety plan includes any particular return to school arrangement? Or can they be separated?
This is a separate issue. Dr. Hamlet, correct?
Yeah, this is a separate issue. That's why we actually, the board voted on last time to do something different, but the health and safety plan stayed the same.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Wilson, I do have another question. We got some information this week about an incident that happened on a bus, and I'm concerned. I know we didn't have enough bus drivers before this occurred, but on the bus, there was some fighting or arguing going on between students. The bus driver had to pull off and try to stop the argument or what's going on. I mean, this is a concern to me because first off, we're having a mix of people into that particular incident, but bus drivers, we had a shortage before COVID. And now if we have bus drivers who now have to act as disciplinarians, I'm afraid we're going to lose more. So, Ms. Capretta, is there any guidelines that we will provide to our bus drivers in regards to this whole situation? I know they're going to provide masks if the kids don't have any. I know the seats are patterned the way they're supposed to be, but I'm wondering about our students' activity. How are we going to address that? Somebody, I guess, maybe.
So students, I'm not sure how the students acting out on a bus, they've been acting out on buses before COVID, and bus drivers have been provided techniques to try to diffuse the situations as much as possible as it relates to fighting and activity that is occurring on the bus that could be unsafe. So as it relates to I'm not sure how to answer that other than to say that our bus drivers have received training and provided information when students act out on the bus. We do have a referral system. The bus driver would write up the appropriate incident and provide that information to the school principal, and then the school principal would take the appropriate action as it relates to the items within the code of conduct.
Thank you, because again, I was just concerned. There's some different layers there, And I think you've managed to unravel them. And I'm sure there will be more questions or more incidents or whatever. And as we always do, we deal with everything as it comes up. And you know, one of Miss Wilson's favorite sayings, we monitor and adjust. So
On the same question,
yes, sir.
if this is the same incident, I understand that it was a tussle among two kindergartners and the bus driver pulled over and called the police. Is that
That's it.
correct?
Yes, that's what we received. That's the
Where
information.
did that
we received.
happen? Where did that happen?
I don't know.
It was
Yeah.
on the way to Catalyst Academy Charter School.
Okay,
And,
Catalyst. All right. Thank
It
you.
was Catalyst Charter School?
Yeah, and I have questions about it too, but I don't know if this is the right meeting.
Yeah, probably
Okay.
correct.
All right.
Okay.
It was 10:26, just this for a reference date.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no further questions or comments on business and finance, could I have a
Ms.
motion
Wilson?
to approve in the second?
Ms. Wilson?
Yes. Question? Go ahead, Bill.
I have one question. I think the first question, I have two questions. I'm sorry. And the first question is to Mr. Joseph. Was it 1010, item 1010 that the money changed?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's a pretty, to me, that's a pretty significant increase from $80,000 to $94,000. Is there like a reason behind that?
So the original term of the contract was to go from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. But when the account period was adjusted to incorporate the final 2 months of this year, the old amount was still in there that recognized 12 months. So this is adding the 2 additional months.
Fantastic. Just needed an answer. And this goes like back to also what we're talking about, the buses. And is there going to be a way for the bus driver to communicate to the school if kids are not doing the necessary protocol on the bus? Not just like, fighting or whatever, but, the bus pulls up, say like there's 20 kids on the bus, 15 don't have masks on and they didn't social distance. Do you think we should give the school a heads up that that this bus might not be safe?
Hi, PM Capretta, Chief Operations Officer. So, bus drivers communicate to schools via their dispatch. So they would need to call into their dispatch, and then their dispatch would be the school, would communicate with the school. We also have asked that all our schools identify someone at the school to, I guess I would call it like a bus liaison. So if there's a problem and that bus, the bus driver could maybe pull up and mention something to the bus liaison.
Fantastic. That fantastic. And also with the safety plan, and I think Ms. Furby Jones can verify this. Just thinking back in the day at Perry High School, when kids would get off their buses and everybody in the school would go over to Shore's Bakery, and you'd have to get the kids off the street into the schools, into school. Is that going to be something that's going to be left up to the schools on how to get the kids into the building? I see that as a big problem on a high school level, getting kids off the school grounds into the building, and that's going to be left up to the individual schools, and will that in turn affect instructional time? The longer it's going to take to get kids into the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Are there any other questions? All right, then at this time, could I have a motion and a second to approve the Business and Finance Committee report, please?
Terry, so moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. It's been moved and seconded by Mrs. Kennedy and Ms. Falls. Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Carter,
Yes, on the report as a whole, I'm going to abstain on item 12.11. Thank you.
thank you. Ms. Edwards? Ms. Edwards, can you unmute yourself? It will come back. Ms. Falls?
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Weiss. Just for clarity, I thought 12:11 was polled.
No.
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 No, only for discussion at this meeting. That wasn't being pulled off from voting for it. We had pulled it from the agenda review for discussion today. That's all.
And
But-
the recommendations or the suggestions or what was talked about, do we know if that's going to be revised and put in there or?
Mr. Weiss had indicated if we talk about the CDC guidelines, there is a reference to that. So anytime the guidelines change, the health guidelines change, that would just up this to our health and safety plan.
Okay, I just needed to be sure.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Weiss.
Thank you. Mr. Gallagher?
Yes, on a whole, no on 12.12.
Mrs. Harmon?
Yes on the report as a whole, no on 10.07.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Talaferro?
Yes.
Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards, are you unmuted?
Mr. Weiss, I think I made a mistake. I said 12:12. I meant 12:11.
That's been noted. The no vote by Mr. Gallagher is on 12:11.
Maybe Ms. Edwards can type in the chat.
Yes, Ms. Edwards, can you type in the chat what you're voting on?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm voting yes. I am going in and out though, guys.
Okay.
Maybe Laura can send me a new link.
Okay.
Okay, so report's approved. 12:11 is 711. 10:07 is 81.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Weiss. We're now going to move to the Human Resources Report, item 13.01, as submitted by Mr. Bill Gallagher, who is the chairperson and his committee. Are there any questions or comments on this report?
Ms. Wilson, I'd like
Yes.
to make a comment. Retirements, that's always a hard part for a lot of us. It's always bittersweet because we see good, valuable folks and yet they've earned their retirement. And like other months, there are a bunch of retirements, but the one I need to single out is Ms. Pam Capretta, our Chief Operations Officer. I got to know her shortly after I joined the board. At the time, she was in charge of finance and did a commendable job. And I started out as chair of the Business Finance Committee when I first joined this board. So obviously I was in a lot of meetings that she attended, and she was very good in those meetings, always good with follow-up, always good in everything. And when the decision was made to follow the advice of the Council of Great City Schools to split up the CFO and COO positions from one person to two separate people, she applied for and received the promotion to COO. And I think she's done an outstanding job in that, you know, overcoming lots of hurdles, because obviously at first she was coming in with the finance background more so, but she understood the whole big picture. And I think a lot of people, when they started hearing that Ms. Capretta was going to retire, they're like, oh no, what are we going to do? And it is a loss, but it's a well-earned retirement. And for folks who don't know her, I will say her retirement was delayed. She would have retired earlier if it wasn't for wanting to help the district through a lot of the challenges dealing with COVID. So you can't put off your retirement indefinitely. There's never a good time for someone to leave us, especially when they're valued. But Ms. Capretta, you have earned your retirement in spades, and I wish you the best of luck in all your endeavors in your retirement, and hopefully we'll keep in touch. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy. And just for another footnote, Mrs. Capretta put in for her retirement, but she's still with us for 2 more months. So when you hear her next month, don't be surprised. She's still around. She's still around.
Well, I also would like to note that, Ms. Wilson, if it's okay, Ms. Capretta, I have always admired and made it very public that she has been amazing at her job. Anything that I've ever, wondered about or asked or whatever, she's always gotten back. If she didn't know, she found out. And she handled herself so professional, but yet such a nice, soft, personal touch. And so I don't want to say no more because I'll cry because I'm emotional, but I will miss her. But so I'm going to really make use of these 2 months.
So
Thank you.
I just want to make one comment about Ms. Capretta. I could make many, but she's done an outstanding job. She will be missed. But just so everybody knows her level of commitment and dedication to wanting Pittsburgh Public Schools to be successful, she's actually on vacation right now, but she's calling in to make sure if there's any questions, concerns, she's there to answer. So we appreciate you, Pam. We're going to miss you. Enjoy your vacation. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Speech.
If I could add my words of loss. I haven't known Pam for very long, like some of you, for years and years. I only met her when I first came on this board. But I've found her to be one of the more upfront and competent and plain-spoken members of the administration, and her competence and plain-spokenness will be missed by me. Thank you for all you've contributed to the school district, Ms. Capretta.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. All right,
And Ms. Wilson, this
go ahead,
is
Ms. Edwards.
Pam, and I
Go ahead.
absolutely want to say that, Pam, you have done a fine job, and to see you go, just make sure we know where the party's at. But we will miss you, and thank you for all you've done on behalf of the school district of Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Are there any other questions or comments in this human resources section?
Nope. I just him too. On behalf of the Safety and Operations Committee, as the chair, I was excited to be able to work with Ms. Capretta, and so I'm going to be sad that she will be leaving us physically, but I know she will be here and she'll still be, bringing her wisdom. Thank you.
I meant to add that Ms. Capretta has been available around the clock. She showed up at a school building at 8:30 in the morning on a Sunday because of an issue. And that's dedication. The fact that she, I thought about this as Dr. Hamlet pointed out, she's calling in from vacation. So there was never a time that she was not available. And that to me is above and beyond. So not to say everybody should always do that, but to me, it was very much appreciated because it was a school in my board district where there were a lot of concerns about readiness to open on Monday. And this was the day before schools were opening August a year ago. So very much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all so much. I think at this time we're ready then to have a vote on this committee. on the human resources report. So could I have a motion in a second, please?
So moved. Terry?
Second.
That was Ms. Falls.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Weiss, roll call vote, please.
Carter,
Yes, on the report as a whole, I'm going to abstain on R3.
Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Gallagher,
Yes.
Mrs. Harbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Ms. Salafaro,
Yes.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Report's approved with the abstention as noted on R3.
All right, thank you. Items 16.01 and 16.02, the financial statements and controllers reports for the month ending September 30th, 2020 are before you this afternoon. Are there any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move now to item 16.03, the EBE report for October 2020, which is also before you this afternoon. Are there any questions or comments on this report? All right, thank you. And we're going to move on to 17.01. It is a resolution of the Board of Public Education for authorizing the superintendent to implement the hybrid instruction to return to school plan. And we'll start with Dr. Hamlet.
You're on mute.
I knew it. I just like, sorry guys, my apologies. So I just want to take a brief moment to thank all those who took time out of their day to submit their concerns and gratitude and hopes and support during the last 2 days of public hearing comments. Your positions were not only heard, but also profoundly considered. Over the past 8 months together, we have tackled the trials and tribulations that this pandemic has brought us, while at the same time we managed our health, our families and jobs, and worked hard to maintain our connections with our students. And it's connections with our students that is in jeopardy. It's our turn to demonstrate to the community the impact of thousands of hours of hard work that went into planning, preparation, and establishment of new protocols. What I'm not promising is perfection, just like there was bumps in the road with remote learning. It was hard at first, but we were able to manage through this. There isn't a school district in this country that has a perfect scenario for dealing with this pandemic. And we have the protocols in place right now to manage challenges as they come. Our district physician, Dr. Martin Gregorio, has provided deep input and insight on our implementation strategy in consultation with the Allegheny County Health Department and other medical experts. It is definitely inevitable that we will be faced with challenges as we've navigated several thus far. We have strong protocols and procedures in place to mitigate and respond quickly. During the August legislative board meeting, the board voted unanimously to allow fall sports to launch. Our board was supportive in allowing students and families the opportunity to choose to participate. And now we are offering them the ability to choose in-person learning or e-learning. The district and administration have been clear and thorough, and we are ready to work with the board, staff, administration, and community. We understand the fear and trepidation with returning to school. This has not been easy and will not be easy. These decisions will impact all. Some may like it, some may not. But ultimately, we try to make the best decisions that are in the best interest of our students, our faculty and staff, and our community at large. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Dr. Hamlet. All right, at this time, do we have any, I'm going to look first to see if anybody's hands are up in the participant list. If anybody, I don't see any hands
I'd
up
like
in the
to make a
participant
motion
list.
to amend this resolution.
All right, Mr. Carter.
Let me just add here, Ms. Carter, excuse me, there should be a motion in a second, put it on the floor, and then unless there was, I missed it, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you didn't miss it. You didn't miss it. All right, you're right. This is a new item, so we do have to have a motion and a second to place it on the board here for discussion. All right, could I have that, please?
So moved.
What are we placing on the floor for discussion?
17.01, the resolution to have the superintendent implement the hybrid instruction return to school plan.
Second,
Was that
Ms.
Ms.
Falls.
Falls? Okay,
Mhm.
Mr. Carter made the motion, Ms. Falls seconded it. Okay, now discussion, and now I think we have Mr. Carter.
Yes, thank you. I would like to amend this resolution to reflect additional change. And it is that the superintendent is authorized to start the phase plan for instruction and support with students in the D cohort beginning on November the 9th, 2020, and start the phase plan for instruction and support for students in the AA and BB cohorts no sooner than January 4th and no later than January 25th, 2021. The C cohort will remain in remote instruction starting on November the 9th with the option to switch to in-person instruction and support on January 25th, 2021.
I second this amendment. This is Terry.
This is Cindy. We do have two other areas that need to be addressed on that resolution.
And you would I think
oh.
since he just made an amendment and it was seconded by Ms. Kennedy, we have to discuss this amendment first.
Oh, thank you.
And we were proposing that this go in after current paragraph 2 under the whereas. So this would, and
Discussion?
Yes, Mr. I don't know what to say because I agree. I'm agreeing with Mr. Carter and have afterwards some additional amendments.
Is there anyone else? I have something, but I wanted to let other people speak first.
Ms. Wilson, can I ask that Mr. Carter repeat the amendments?
Sure.
The dates.
So the amendment is that the superintendent is authorized to start the phase plan for instruction and support with students in cohort D beginning on November the 9th, 2020, and start the phase plan for instruction and support for students in the AA and BB cohort no sooner than January 4th and no later than January 25th, 2021. The C cohort will remain in remote instruction starting on November 9th, 2020, with the options to switch to in-person instruction and support on January 25th, 2021, when the second semester begins.
Carter, if I can ask a clarifying question.
Yes.
Your amendment that addresses the D cohort, is the D cohort to have a phased in-school instruction? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
I want to make that clear. Thank you.
Also, I just want to make a note to make sure that, or ask Mr. Carter. So the AA-BB cohort will continue online as well, and then begin to phase in and before not earlier than January 4th and no later than the January 2nd, because they will have to
25th.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll be continuing online on November 9th as well, correct?
Yes.
Got it.
and a few of us discussed this behind the scenes, and in reality, July 25th and July 26th are asynchronous individual learning days. So, but the January 25th is the first day of the second semester. So this would really be so 25th and 26th, all students will be remote at home, but 27th is the first in-school day of the second semester. So that's just a clarification, but it would be following the school calendar as of January 25th. If I said July, I'm sorry. It's been a long week. So basically whatever the school calendar would be saying for days on and days off, or independent learning and stuff as of January 25th. The AA and BB cohort would be in school when they're supposed to be and at home learning when they're supposed to be.
All right,
For
I'm
clarity?
going to make my comments now. I'm opposed to this amendment because I've been contacted by quite a few parents who were taken by surprise that there were so many other parents who were speaking against returning to school on November 9th. They didn't realize that there was a campaign out there to do that. They said if they had realized that there were so many people speaking to keep kids from going back on November 9th, they would have been more involved. They didn't realize that this was even an option. There are still a lot of children, and not all the children that I'm thinking about will be included in the D cohort. There's a lot of kids that are not in the D cohort that really need to be in some type of in-person education right now. I understand that we have issues with COVID. Everybody does. We're not the only school district, but there are many school districts who are just actually struggling with how to deal with some of these children who are not being reached. And I'm speaking, well, that's it. You understand my point. I'm just voting against it because there's a lot of children who should begin some in-person instruction who will not be a part of cohort D. And so I'm speaking on behalf of those children and their parents who would have spoken out more if they had realized that they should have gotten a little campaign together too, just like all the others did.
And the point of the motion is there are some of us who, despite what people are saying, it's our own personal opinion. I personally am barely leaving my house. And so I've been watching the COVID numbers. If you look at the map of the state and see where what counties are in red, we are now in red again on this map that I saw in an article today online. For the last couple of days, we keep hearing about these huge numbers of new cases that are higher than they were in August and in July when we were deciding about the first 9 weeks. So my desire to do this is not because of just the input. It is my personal belief of what is best, given we also have the flu season about to start, and we have Thanksgiving and winter break coming up. People are getting more lax with their remaining separate, so there are quite a few people that are going to get together with family or friends, either in their homes or somewhere else, and that's going to increase exposure as well. So in this case, I'm not doing it just based on input. I am doing it on my personal belief.
And I feel the only thing that would stop us from doing the November 9th or anything later would be if the health department comes up with a decision to tell us that. But I can't be supposed about what people might do as time comes along, which is impacting these students. So I understand, and it's not just on input. I understand we're dealing with a lot of stuff, but I have to think about the kids that are not being reached right now and that won't be included in cohort D.
Can I say something about cohort D?
Point of order. Could the maker of the motion please elaborate on who is included in cohort D?
Thank you.
I was just going to address that. Is that okay? Or do you want to do it, Kevin?
It doesn't matter as long as it gets addressed.
Go ahead, Pam.
Okay. So here, before I explain that, I just wanted to say that I understand this is a really complicated and really hard decision. And, we've been going down this road thinking that we were going to do this AABBC model since All-In started. And I was actually on the committee where that All-In work took place to come up with this model. And when that model was created, that model was looking at a way to get the most amount of students into a building because, we're making these cohorts where we're letting people come into the building and fill up the rooms, I guess. And now that we are looking at the COVID resurgence and schools are opening it up and shutting down, I wondered if maybe we should have done it the other way which would be to say, open up the buildings, yes, because there are definitely students that cannot and are not learning in the remote environment. I think we can all admit that for different reasons. And that's where, I mean, the cohort D was brought about to talk about a 4-day option for students, which originally it's like students with disabilities, students with complex needs, I guess you would say. But we've never really thought about, can we do a 4-day model for other students with high needs that maybe are not getting access to their education in the remote environment? And then in the hybrid environment, it's a 2-day shot. And it's only 13 days if you're in AA before Christmas and 10 days for BB before Christmas, but the Ds would get 23 days. So in item number 2, it calls out the D cohort as special needs students, medically fragile students, and other student groups. So it doesn't limit us to making the decision to say there are other student groups. We heard a lot of testimony from our English learners and people in that community that were saying that they were having a lot of issues with parents that don't speak English and can't help. I mean, parents are helping. Like I want people to understand that, especially for our youngest learners. So maybe that is another other group. Our youngest learners right now have to have a parent sitting with them all day to do this thing. So 2 days a week means that 3 days a week, the parent is still doing this thing. So is there a way that we could look at the D cohort, agree to bring D in right away and expand it to whatever we say is the need, high need students? So right now, cohort D as it stands in this resolution includes special needs, medically fragile, and other groups, but that could be amended also after we work on this other amendment to agree to bring in just D. And I
Okay,
can't.
there's 15,488 families who opted for in-person. 15,488 families who opted for their kids to be in school. Well, actually, that's the number of students. That's 70% of our student body.
I will
70%.
disagree with you because I'm one of them.
How do you disagree with
I'm one
70% of people?
I'm one of them. So, and I will tell you what happened. The way that we promoted this, we didn't exactly say what C cohort would consist of. So there are parents that are saying, I don't know if they'll have the same teachers. I don't know if they will have the same classes and if they will have synchronous or asynchronous learning. So I'm still in an AABB model, but I don't have any intention of sending my child in because my child doesn't need to be in. We are opening our building, and the more people you have in a building, the more we are exposed for risk. So if we have less people in the building, we have less exposure for risk, and we can make that choice to bring the students in that really need it before Christmas. I mean, or before the new year.
Others?
This
Others?
is Veronica, yes.
Go ahead, Veronica.
I think that it is just time to move forward. I said a month ago about the phased-in approach, but when the schools decided that they were ready and Dr. Hamlet said he was ready to move forward, I was willing to not micromanage, to just help children. We have all kinds of school districts around us where the kids are in school, charter schools. All the kids are in school, hybrid, but in school. The surrounding school district, all their kids are in school. They're not leaving out low achieving children, vulnerable children, parents who are single but gotta go to work and leave their children at home. Nobody on this board is living under those kind of circumstances. So until you have time or get out there and talk to parents who are struggling to keep a roof over their kids' head, food on the table, struggling to get them educated, it is up to the school district of Pittsburgh to educate all children. And we are not doing that. So it is not up to the board to hold them back. Yes, those days of testimony had a lot of people testifying who were not living under those circumstances, but there are people living under poor circumstances, and some of them are not able to do what we do on a daily basis. I'm looking forward to them going back to school. I'm looking forward to Dr. Hamlet being able to do his job. How about high school seniors that haven't met with counselors, so don't know if they're eligible to graduate or not? Low achieving students, and we just heard more about low achieving students this week. So all the board knows that it is just time to go back to school without being worried about how we look in the public when we are serving the public right now. It's time to move forward. I oppose Mr. Carter's resolution. He would have had to bring it to the full board, not just a few people. Thank you.
Ms. Edwards, my resolution is now before the full board. You are a part of that full board.
Before
and
you changed it,
and actually,
Kevin.
Ms. Edwards, I don't have to bring my amendment before the full board.
Okay,
The
well, it's here
resolution
now.
is the resolution that was submitted by the administration, not by me. I'm just amending the resolution based on what I think the needs are. And when you talk about those vulnerable children going back to school, you know, when you change their teacher on a daily basis because their actual teacher is taking a long-term leave, and you have to, you know, supplement their learning with substitutes that don't have a syllabus or anything that they're really teaching off of, you're going to disrupt their learning even more. When you send them to school for 2 days a week, and currently they're online getting guided teacher instruction 5 days a week, you'll disrupt their learning more. And you heard that not from me, but you heard that from the majority of staff that testified, talking about the challenges they experience and now how the process is working out. And so, you know, these aren't necessarily all of my opinions. You know, I personally, like Ms. Kennedy, have refrained from doing anything in public as it relates to the virus and only going out if necessary. But I don't think that with the cases today are higher than they were, you know, 7 months ago when we started this journey, that it would make any logical sense to anybody listening as to why we would reopen schools when cases are higher today. You know, and that is your decision to make. You know, you have a choice to vote on this amendment or not to. And so my goal, and to make my conscience clear, I put forth this amendment. It's your job to either vote it up or vote it down, and then we'll move on from there. But to say that the full board
It is Miss Edwards. He did present this properly. The resolution is on the floor, and at this time he can make that amendment. He did it properly. There's anything underhanded or anything. It's done correctly. Are there any others? Miss Falls, did you have something that you needed to say on this particular
Yes, Ms.
amendment?
Wilson.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, just for clarification, there have been over 30 school districts. So I know there might be some schools around us, whatever, but there have been over 30 school districts that have listed that have either closed, opened again, closed for 2 weeks, opened again, closed. But there are 30 districts. In addition to, we have to at least respect the fact that there are staff people saying that in their buildings, they have windows that don't open. They have sinks that are out of order. They have shortage of supplies. I mean, there's a variety. I have 3 pages of things that I just pulled out from information I was given. I'm not going to list them all. All I'm saying is, when with the thing that resolution amendment that Mr. Carter said, it indeed states
Did you start with 2 or 3, Mr. Carter? I'm not sure, because I have an amendment.
3.
Oh, you started, okay. That, there are going to be some options when the next amendment, which I hope to bring up, will occur.
I hope it helps parents.
Are there any other questions or comments on this amendment? If there's no other questions or comments on this
Sylvia.
amendment, then I think we should vote on it.
Sylvia, I have something, okay?
Go ahead.
And this is just what drives me nuts about this is like the total lack of consistency we have on everything.
Yeah.
When Ms. Talaferro read our core beliefs, the first line is we're going to educate all students to the best of our ability, no matter what. Okay, so that's something we live with, and that's right there. And now we have cohort DD, and is that going to be fluid? Is that going to address the essential workers? People? Is that going to address the child care people? How are we going to draw the line? Just like we went through the whole thing with legal, we have to be consistent because, what we're all against is exclusion, and we are like excluding people. Okay. So if we want to get everybody back in the buildings, and I've mentioned it before, there's so many kids in our school that are needy that a teacher knows they're needy because they know that kid and they know what's right for them. And we have to pay attention to the experts, okay? The people in the buildings. We have to pay attention to the experts. So if we look at this, okay, this is quarter 1 of our big game for 2020, 2021. We're going through the first quarter. Okay, there's some stuff going good. Okay, some stuff going good. We heard some teachers go at 100% attendance online. And if I'm not mistaken, it was a kindergarten teacher. We heard that a child with autism, his mother, that's not the best situation, but she's very, very pleased with it. There's people that are saying, okay, things are going good. Did we find out the kids that aren't logging on, are they still in the school district? Have we done everything possible to reach them? Have we driven to their house? Have we found out why they're not there? So if we're going to do this, okay, and we got to be upfront, okay, is this like an experiment? Getting the needy kids in to see if there's a COVID outbreak or whatever. I think we have to be very transparent to see what we're doing. Why are we doing it this way? I shared with you guys the letter I got from the speech therapist. Once you get the kids into school with a mask, they can't help those kids. They can't see their mouths when they form the letters. And I think the example that speech therapist gave was a letter T. Are we doing this, okay, for the right reason? And that's what I'm asking. Are we doing this for the right reason? If we have the most needy kids coming in, okay, who's going to determine that? I know you're going to say it's based on like IEPs or 504 plans or whatever. Is it going to be fair? I'm just like you guys, man. This COVID has struck close to home. I have family members losing money, all the difficulties that everybody else has. I empathize with that. I'm just saying, if we're going to do this, it better be for the right reason, and it better be for the benefit for all, including staff, including teachers, including children, including parents. We heard from 184 people out of 25,000 people, and as we said, that could have been orchestrated. Okay. But then again, Sylvia, you said what was the number on 70% of the people want to come back to school, right? Was that what it was?
That's correct. 70%.
Yeah. So, I mean, we really I'm just saying, we just really got to think this thing through and make sure it's right. Make sure that everybody's absolutely confident in that safety plan. That's why I voted no. There's a lot of people have told me they're not confident. They don't have the stuff. So you know, this is a really, really, really huge vote, you know, and if it was up to me, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Lieutenant General Hal Moore, was the guy who started the helicopters in Vietnam, the regime, and the helicopter regiment, and he said the hay's never in the barn. The hay's never in the barn. If we can work on this up to next week, maybe we should do that. So as people keep saying, we don't got information. Pam says we don't have information. Well, can we get more information in another week? Can we have a special legislative session? I don't know, but you know, this is something I hope we don't get wrong.
All right, if there's no other comments on this amendment, could we still can we move forward?
I have comment.
Go ahead.
On Monday, we received information from administration about the preparedness of our buildings. And, you know, I have to be convinced that it's safe to bring back all those students. I also have to be convinced that it's going to be educationally sound. But on the safety issue, there were 13 schools that said they still had issues, and 7 of them are what I consider critical, because the question was, are all of your classrooms prepared for social distancing and learning? And there were 7 buildings on that list. There were 8 buildings that couldn't figure out arrival and dismissal procedures yet. You know, we have to look at some of that information. You know, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't want our kids to be back in schools. And we know that that's where the best teaching happens, but we're asking them to come back into a totally different atmosphere with lots of different challenges. We don't have the devices to everybody for the one-to-one devices. So we're going to have device issues where people are going to be asked to bring their personal devices to school to do this. I mean, I do think that parents, you know, said, yes, I want my kid to go to school 2 days. And I get it. I mean, I get that. This is not easy. This is, you know, I've listened to every single person that told me that they're afraid that they're going to lose their job, or they're going to, you know, maybe lose their housing if they can't go to work. But to put our students in for 2 days, that amounts to 10 days for the BB students and 13 days for the AA students, I think we can open, and we open in a phased way. So we do it safely. We take care of some of these issues that are still not fixed. And then we start phasing in after the, you know, we've got Thanksgiving, we've got Christmas. It doesn't feel right to do this yet in this way. And there's too many unanswered questions, and I cannot vote to open up schools with everybody coming in on November 9th. I just can't do it.
Any other comments or questions? Because if not, we're going to go ahead and move on.
I do have comments.
Go ahead,
sorry.
Mr. Dean. Go ahead.
Some of you may remember introduced his amendment that we go remote until the first week of school, or was it the November the 9th, the first date? That was the second date. Anyway, his original motion was to go remote for a certain short period of time. At that time, my position was that we should stay remote until January. That was my original position. It is clear to me that in-person learning is better than remote learning, more effective in teaching. And nobody on this board has been more outspoken than me on my dissatisfaction with the quality of education, especially that Black children are receiving. And we all know that Black people are disproportionately represented in this pandemic. However, the question I think that we have to solve, the riddle we have to solve is that improved learning worth the increased risk of bringing kids back together in large number? As for the increased learning, given in time, we can fix and improve the learning. If children or staff get infected, we may not be able to fix that. I am not able to justify in my mind bringing kids back into large groups, even though we have the promise of a better learning environment than if they are remote. So the closest I think that our vote comes to what I intended with my original position is to support Mr. Carter's amendment. It would not bring the majority of students, overwhelming majority of students, back into in-person learning until January. And if that's the byproduct of this amendment, and it also continues to provide for those medically fragile and high need students to get the personal attention that they need, it solves both problems for me. So I'll be voting in favor of Kevin's amendment. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Telfair?
I just one comment. My only hesitance about this amendment is not being certain that cohort D will include the students who I think should be included. I agree, students with high needs and medically fragile students we've talked about often, but I don't see, and I know it others it, but I need some guarantee that in that other section is going to be included are language learners, students who have the highest risk. So that might not necessarily be, academic behavior, or like that could be just like school is a safe space for them, and they've been out of school for 8-9 months at this point, and not learning virtually. So I think
that's my second amendment, Ms. Talafera.
Yeah, Ms. Talfair, we have a series of amendments, and that will be amended if people agree with us. We wanted to explicitly add English language learners because of that very reason.
I think maybe it might have been out of order in my opinion, because it makes it hard for me to support this one, not knowing if the other will change. So that's my only thought. But thank you for
so noted. Thank you.
Let me ask
the question.
Ira, when it comes to these amendments, does each one of them have to be done individually?
Yes.
Sorry, I missed.
Okay.
Yes.
The one that was introduced is on the floor for a vote. Apparently there are others, and we'll just deal with them in that fashion.
Okay.
And the question has been called, so that means we now vote.
We're voting on Mr. Carter's amendment to the resolution. Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
No.
Ms. Falls?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
And this supplants the previous resolution.
No, it amends it.
It amends it. Yes.
Mrs. Harbin?
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Salafaro,
No.
Jardine,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
No.
Okay, the amendment passes 6-3. So the resolution has been amended to reflect the contents of Mr. Carter's amendment.
Ms. Wilson, does this open
Yes.
up the floor for the next amendment?
Apparently.
Thank you. I would like to put on the floor for this resolution to amend number 1, the remote instruction plan in effect for the first 9 weeks grading period shall end on November 6th, which is the Friday before the return on November 9th. So I would like to have that amended to November 6th.
And I second that. This is Terry.
Thank you. And I'm not done, Ms. Kennedy, so
Okay.
hold on. And I would also like to include English learners in number 2 with the grouping of the special needs students, medically fragile English learners. Ms. Talavera, I'm okay with any other high-risk students. I would be okay with that. That wasn't originally, but I heard you and I agree with that. And then the other student groups and the rest of the sentence would remain as is.
Wait a minute. That's
Oh.
not what we discussed.
No,
Wait
that's
a
true.
minute.
That's true. Wait a minute. No, and
Can we just split these? Just do item 1 and then do the English language learners and change it separately?
You want to vote on number 1? Vote on number
Separate.
1.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm just suggesting it because that way we can discuss these separately.
Okay.
All right. So the
I'm doing-
reason for changing the end date in number 1 is the last day of the first grading period is November 6th. The first day of the second grading period is November 9th. So
I didn't make that clear, Ms. Kennedy. I didn't make that clear.
I'm just giving further explanation. All right. So that is why we're recommending that change.
All right, I heard a motion and it was seconded. Any discussion?
I need clarification on what we're voting on. I'm
All right,
sorry.
the amendment made just now was to say that remote learning ends as of November 6th.
Well, the problem is that the motion that we just passed to extend remote learning for AA and BB until January is contradicted by that second motion, isn't it?
No, it's not. The one we just passed starts on November 9th. So that's why we are thinking about changing number 1 to end on November 6th. So that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Start and end on the same day. It's really a technicality, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But necessary. It needed changed.
We have a motion and a second to revise paragraph 1 of the resolution to state the remote instruction plan approved in July will end on November 6th.
Are there any further questions or comments on this amendment?
I'll move to call the question.
Question has been called. Mr. Weiss, go ahead with the vote.
Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mrs. Harbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Salafaro,
Yes.
Mr. Rudine,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
No.
Okay, so the amendment's approved 8-1.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to take the next amendment, which is going back to item 2 on the original, as it says. And what we are proposing is to change it to read, we're going to insert English learners and end it at groups. So let me read what we're proposing this item to state. We're proposing the superintendent shall formulate and implement a phased plan for instruction and support of students, including 4 student cohorts, including in-person/remote instruction for the AA/BB cohorts, comma, remote instruction for the C cohort and in-person instruction for the D cohort, including special needs students, comma, medically fragile students, comma, English learners, comma, and other student groups, period.
Well, Terry, I think we need to stretch that out. We received a devastating report on African American students this week, so maybe we need to add African American students who are low achieving. And I know you can't say we didn't hear that.
Okay, so first, I just made a motion. We haven't had a second yet.
I second it.
Thank you, Pam. Okay, and Ms. Edwards, we see the other student groups as a catch-all for folks that we're not explicitly identifying.
Well, you can explicitly identify them. We just went through a presentation this week that was devastating. So I would like to see them added in Word. And
I am only because I want to get, at this point, I'm going to not accept that change because that is going to defeat. Let me finish. The reason why is because that is going to input in a lot more students into the schools than is intended with the amendment that Mr. Carter introduced. So when we're finished voting on this amendment, I invite you to introduce that as a separate amendment.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Ms. Harbin?
You done all the, come on.
I have a question for Dr. Hamlet. Dr. Hamlet, when our, I don't know how to say this. So our principals have been working with their social workers and their counselors, and by now they all have a really strong idea of students that they put on a hard to reach list. Like, do you think it would be reasonable to have principals define in their building who the students would be that would fit into cohort D? So to include like what Ms. Talaferro was saying, I mean, is there a way to be able to say, I mean, I'm fine with actually adding anything like defining the other, but I'm wondering if there's a way that, you know, the principals and their team could make decisions on which students would benefit from being in school in that D cohort now.
So I'm going to let Ms. Jenkins chime in on that specifically, because I know we've been having conversations about if this happens, this change is going to impact cohort AABB in the future as well, but also will impact social distancing in the classrooms currently right now when we bring those students back. Ms. Jenkins, you want to elaborate?
Yes, I can. So for cohort D, we worked with the Pam Capretta and her team. They went out to each of the buildings for regional classrooms to ensure that first the regional rooms could accommodate social distancing. Once we were able to determine that they can accommodate social distancing in the regional classrooms, they also had to meet with principals and talk to principals and check the rooms out where students would actually go into for their general education classes to make sure that the students could go for the week with the AABB students while still meeting social distancing guidelines. So anytime you add more students, we would have to go back in to look to see that it can meet social distancing, add more students to that cohort if we're talking about 4 days a week.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but you, there won't be any A and B students in there.
In
So
January.
no,
In
well, we're talking about November. So from November till January, it is, and the resolution that was presented to us and for this evening to vote on already said that D cohort included other student groups. So I'm not quite sure what you were thinking in there, but since there will be no other students in the buildings besides D, can we have the principals identify the students that need to be in the building?
So I don't foresee that being an issue, but the question will come up in January. Are we saying that the students in cohort D will no longer get 4 days a week if social distancing guidelines? So we can make it work from now to December.
Well, this resolution is going till January, but if you're asking my opinion, I would say yes. So I would say the students that are not successful learning remotely should be the first ones that have the spots to be in our building and should be there 4 days. I mean, we're sending kids to learning centers and learning hubs. If we can put them in our schools and have them in our schools, and it's the kids that need it. I mean, I think that's the spirit of this amendment, is that we would be able to have learning with the least amount of students while COVID is spiking, and identify those students and then bring more in as.
We can work with the principals up through December. I think the question will come back for if the resolutions for the remainder of the year. What I was hearing was that all students in the AABB cohort would come back by January 25th, but that would also impact the students that are in the D cohort. So I'm just presenting the information as stated.
If I could just have a caveat here, a strong caveat, the board and to the administration, that however the other student groups are determined, court cases consistently have held that race is not a permissible criteria for assigning students. So if you want to use achievement or something like that, which is race neutral, that's fine. But I would caution the board and the administration that selecting other student groups on the basis of any racial criteria.
Mr. Weiss, can you do like our multi-tier system of support system that has students that are in tier 3? So the students that are getting the most interventions, can you do it that way?
So long as it is objective criteria, that is not race, well, or gender based. We're not talking about gender, but I just want that to be clear as we're voting on this in the discussion we had. There are lots of cases from Seattle, from and other places that have said that race-based selection in any kind of a program is suspect and is not sustainable.
But Ms. Edwards has only talked about low achieving. She said that they were Black, but that was not her basis.
I want to make sure that everybody understands that, Mr. Dean. I understood that.
Thank you.
I wanted to make sure that was clear, that this, whatever basis is used on the achievement issue, it has to be achievement based and not race based.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Let's add it in.
You're on mute, Ms. Wilson.
We have.
I don't foresee. I can't even see how you would staff this. We're sitting here trying to figure out how we were staffing November 9th. I can't even figure out how you're going to staff this group. If you had so many people who don't want to come back November 9th, I don't know how you're going to get the staff to come out for cohort D.
Superintendent's going to fix that.
Oh, right.
They're coming in anyway, either resolution, they were coming in. So
really? That's not what I thought. From what you're saying, this isn't saying that.
This amendment has nothing to do with where the staff is supposed to report or not.
Where are they going to report? Where are they reporting?
the staff will be, per administration, working out with the union, are supposed to be reporting to the buildings as of November 9th.
But you have all these kids that are still going to be on remote. So they're going to just be on remote, but they'll be teaching from their classroom, which is one of the things that they've been talking against.
We're going back to a resolution that we already approved.
I'm just trying to understand how it was
I
being
understand what
staffed.
you're doing.
I'm trying to understand how it's being
We're
staffed.
still
That's all.
arguing a resolution has already been approved.
No, I just asked the question, where were the teachers going to be?
And I'm trying to answer. Due to the personnel discussion we had in executive session, we are going to follow the advice, what we were discussing explicitly with Ms. Love at executive session and talking about other stuff. We need to let it be on a case-by-case basis, is what was explained to us, as opposed to us making a resolution specific to the staff members. It's not what I would like to do, but I am taking the advice of Ms. Love. That's why when the staff is returning is not my call. That's with the MOU that we've yet to see. This has to do with the students.
Again, I want to be clear. This is a public meeting, and we're talking about things that normally are dealt with in executive session. So,
That's why I'm trying to delicately step around it, because
I want to make it clear that the remote instruction, which was ended, it was started in July, it ended on November 6th. That ends that system. And there are certain rights it has as an employer, which it can exercise, and I will leave that advice to between our office and other council and the administration and board. That's not I do not want to engage in that discussion in a public forum.
Is Dr. Gregorio on the line?
Yes.
I have a technical question, a medical question.
Okay.
If we were going to insert an amendment that controlled our return to the buildings based upon a certain positivity, COVID positivity, what does the CDC guideline recommend as to what that positivity rate would be? We are in the middle of a spike, and they say it's going to get worse before it gets better. My question is, what is the percentage of positivity rate that we should use to keep us from going back into buildings before it's time?
So to go back into a building into a hybrid mode, your PCR percent positivity should be between 5 and 10. Right now, our PCR—
It's a wide span.
Right. Right now, our PCR percent positivity is actually better than that. It's 3.6. And last week it was 3.5. And the week before that, it was 3.7. Now, you don't just look at PCR percent positivity. You also have to look at the incident rate, okay? And the incident rate was 56.1. In order to go back into the buildings, the incident rate has to be between 10 and 100. So 56.1 means that, so you have to look at two things. And usually with these two things, you want to see what's the worst, what expresses the worst. In other words, the worst level of viral transmission, okay? So to answer your question directly, it's between, to go back into the building, your PCR percent positivity should be between 5 and 10%. And we are currently at 3.6, which is even better.
For what period of time? We should be between 5 and 10 for how long?
So that's a good question. There's not a set rule for that. However, if you look on the the PA Department of Education website, when you talk about PCR percent positivity, you want to at least have, at least, let's say you were thinking about switching from a level of transmission from, let's say, from low to moderate. Basically, you would look at it first to see what your percent positivity is. And then if it stayed higher than it normally was, or would change dramatically, you wait for at least another week to see if it stays that way or does it come back down. Because the very nature of all of this is basically a pandemic that's going to have multiple spikes, such as a fall surge. You're going to have many surges after the fall surge, and you're going to have many spikes even after the administration of a vaccination. So in that context, you look at the PCR percent positivity, and then if patterns emerge that are new, you wait another week to see if the pattern continues. And in that context, then you make your decision.
Now that positivity rate that you quoted, is that for the city of Pittsburgh or the county of Allegheny or the state of Pennsylvania?
The one that I quoted is basically from the state website, the Early Warning Monitoring System dashboard, and that is for Allegheny County.
Allegheny County.
That's correct.
Thank you, Dr. Gregorio.
Absolutely.
I move to call the question.
All right, the question's been called. So, Mr. Weiss, you want to go over what the third amendment is before we vote?
Did you want me to reread it?
Yes, please. I didn't get all the time.
Okay. The
And
the
Terry,
rewording is.
I want to add to it.
No, I am going to read what my amendment was. And like I said, you are invited to make your own amendment to change it.
Okay.
All right.
Actually, it's not that's not an invitation. It's just the proper way to do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson, for clarifying. The superintendent shall formulate and implement a phased plan for instruction and support of students, including 4 student cohorts, including in-person/remote instruction for the AA/BB cohorts, remote instruction for the C cohort, and in-person instruction for the D cohort, including special needs students, medically fragile students, English learners, and other student groups, period.
Okay, the question's been called. I'll call the roll. Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
No.
Ms. Balls,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mrs. Harbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Salafaro,
Yes.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
I'm a consistent no today.
Okay, so that amendment's been approved 7-2. So the
we
resolution
need-
now has been amended by two amendments.
Do we have to, as a point of clarification for housekeeping, as a result of Mr. Carter's amendment, which inserted a new paragraph 3, do we need to do an amendment to change the numbering on the 2 paragraphs after that, or does that automatically happen?
What will automatically happen is that's what's called scrivener's work. That would happen just by redrafting it to be consistent with these amendments or any others that are made. Ultimately, when this amendment process is over, there'll have to be a vote on the entire amended resolution.
That's correct.
On amendments now.
Okay, thank you very much for a point of clarification.
All right. Is this where I get to make a change?
Go ahead, Ms. Edwards.
Okay. I'm on Terry's sentence in number 2. Because of the because of that meeting we had this week, I think we got to pull it out just in case. So she ended up with medically fragile students and other student groups as present to start on November 9. I would like to add to that sentence, let me see, English learners, students, and I would like to add to after English learners, students who are low achieving, because we had a meeting this week. You guys all know that who they are and whose they are. So I want to bring it out.
Excuse me, we removed everything after groups, and we already inserted English learners based on the vote that we just had.
Well, now I want to vote on low achieving students. I want to add them to the D cohort.
Is adding students who are low achieving. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
low achieve, yes.
Would there be a second to that?
I'd like to make the motion that we add to number 2 students who are low achieving.
Well, I understand it. I was just asking if there's a second to your motion.
I'll second it so we can have a discussion if anyone wants to.
Thank you.
I just want to chime in and say that when we do that, if we do that, that will impact possibly in some schools the number of students that can actually come. So it might have to go back to a 2-day cohort based on the number of students in certain classrooms.
Okay.
Could I could I ask a question? How do you, is that defined by Ms. Edwards? Is that defined by students who are so many grade levels behind, or students who are getting high interventions? Like, how do you define?
I think we can take that report we got the other day, break it down, and we can define who they are.
I don't agree with you there, Ms. Edwards. I don't think that's up to us to decide about students.
Well, Dr. Hamlet can decide it. The report
Yeah, I
is
mean,
real. It's just a way to deal with that report and to put it in writing and to define who those students are. I don't think it'll be hard at all.
But I'm just saying, it shouldn't be up to board members to select the students. I think definitely that's administrative.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we can work with our principal leadership and our central office to make those decisions, use the data behind it.
And you can make those decisions with the language that says other student groups already.
Whatever language in there is.
Let's put it out. Let's make it real.
But again, like I said, I want to make it just very clear, based on, and I'm just putting this out there hypothetically, some schools and some classrooms may look different when it comes to the cohort D. And we're defining cohort D as 4 days, right? If you have a number of low performance children in that one classroom, then we have to make sure we social distance, and all those kids can't get in on 4 days. You understand what I'm saying?
You're saying that there'll be too many kids in some schools, that their classrooms might have 20 kids, and there's not enough social distancing to have 20 kids in one classroom.
They will go back to 2 days, almost just like the AABB.
Okay, well, also keep in mind though that there are students that fall into these categories, like, so even students with disabilities that will choose not to come in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that if we can define it by school, by principal, making the decision on what students they feel would benefit from being in the building and not just like, making a whole big group like low achieving.
I can live with that. That was originally a thought I had too.
I just think that this is going more and more across the turf of the administration's purview.
Hey, Dr. Hamlet can work it out. That's how it all began, allowing Dr. Hamlet to work it out. But you thought you should be a part of that, so I think I should be a part of it. Thank
My
you.
resolution still allows, my amendment still allows Dr. Hamlet to work it out.
Okay, he can work it out. But definitely you missed this meeting we had the other day. But these children do need added. So
Yes, I read the EAP report from the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. I'm well aware of the numbers that are included and how they've broken it down by
Thank you.
schools. It's very eloquent. I like to call the question.
The question has been called.
This is on Ms. Edwards' amendment that would add students who are low achieving to the list that was approved in Ms. Kennedy's amendment. Mr. Carter?
I am voting no on this amendment because I think the definition is too broad.
Okay, Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Falls?
Is this including Miss Kennedy and Miss Edwards?
No, this is just Ms. Edwards' amendment.
Ms. Edwards' addition. Ms. Kennedy's amendment's been approved. So Ms. Edwards is adding, quote, students who are low achieving to that list. So that's all we're voting on.
I do think that falls into other groups, and so that could apply there. So I'm going to vote no, but I do think that can fall into, and that's why that was left so broad, other groups. So I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Gallagher?
I'm going to vote no because I think that the resolution has to have, I'd say, like, for example, I leave it up to the school and I would have students reading 3 grade levels below, three grade levels, or doing math 3 grade levels below. I'd have it like that because low achieving is just, I think it's too broad. But also I think at each school you're going to have to see, like, not every school is going to have the same amount of DD cohort. Some schools might have very few of that. So I think we should leave it up to the schools, and we should also be more specific, like like Veronica said, using that report and saying, these are the areas, these are the students that fit the criteria. So I'm a no till it gets written that way.
Okay, Mrs. Harmon?
I'm a no as well, but I would like to see that happen in our schools for students that are struggling with remote learning and struggling. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Kennedy?
I'm a no because I agree with what my colleagues who have voted no have said.
Talafaro?
Oh, it's disappointing because I understand what Miss Edwards means, and I think it's what I've been thinking too, is that there's a category of students that we're forgetting about that don't fall into being English language learners or medically fragile or special needs specifically. And I hate to other people, but I would like the administration to acknowledge and find a way to address students who don't fall in this category, but school is in-person school is a necessity to them, and also for families who are essential workers or who are in positions where sending their kids to school in person is necessary for them and affects their jobs. So I'm going to vote yes, in solidarity with what I believe Ms. Edwards is thinking. But I really feel I have some deep concerns about that. So with that, I'll just say yes.
Dean?
Let me clarify that I understand what Ms. Edwards is trying to achieve, and I do believe that African-American students in our school system need particular attention. But this particular amendment brings more Black students into the school buildings in the middle of a spike. of the pandemic. The direction of the pandemic is going up, not down. And we are already predisposed disproportionately to increased infection. And I need to see that we are below the positivity rate for a certain period of time, be that 1 week or 2 weeks, before I'm willing to expose Black children to further infection risk. So although I support the sentiment, I am not willing to bring those kids back into these buildings in the middle of a spike prematurely. I will be voting no.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wilson?
I'm voting no. The intent is correct, but the numbers of kids that might be into a specific school or schools probably could be overcrowded, and that would put a danger. So that's why I'm voting no.
Okay, so that motion, the amendment fails 2-7. We now have a resolution with the three amendments, the one that Mr. Carter made, and then the two that were approved before this one. So that'll be the resolution that is being voted on by the board as amended.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weiss. We actually are moving to another new item. It's item 17.02.
We have to vote on. We have to vote on the resolution.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, we have to vote on the whole resolution. I forgot again. I'm sorry.
So moved, Terry.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Weiss, go ahead with the roll call.
Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Falls?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Ms. Harbin?
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes.
Salafaro?
Yes.
Sudine?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Put me down as abstain this time.
Okay, so the resolution as amended is approved. 8 yes, 1 abstention.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weiss. All right, item 17.02 is the election of the school treasurer and the setting of bonds. Are there any questions or discussion on this item? All right, hearing none, then Mr. Weiss, can I ask for a motion and a second on this, please?
Terry, so moved.
I was gonna say, I don't normally do it, but I'll second it.
This is due to the retirement of Margaret Lanier and the appointment of Mr. Jones as her successor. And he is statutorily the school treasurer, but you have to elect him. Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Falls?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mrs. Harbin?
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Talafaro?
Yes.
Mr. Udine?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
It's approved unanimously.
All right, thank you. Are there any announcements to be brought before this body this evening before we adjourn that does not need a legislative vote?
Ms. Wilson? Okay.
Yes, Ms. Falls.
Someone else want to go?
Yeah, if that's okay, Ms. Falls. I don't.
No, go. Go ahead.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, youth. Go ahead, youth.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. I wanted to just say that I know that tonight's decision may not sit well with everybody. And I hope that the decisions that we have made today will at least help support some of our students who have the most need during this time and have struggled learning virtually. I want to also acknowledge families specifically who I've talked with who have experienced a lot of troubles. And I want to thank the hard work of organizations like the Latino Community Center, Arise, and even people in the Somali Bantu community who have expressed their difficulties in experiencing with remote learning and the issues that they had. But I also want to acknowledge, I heard a lot of comments in the past couple nights in regards to, whether or not our board will meet in person or stay virtual. And I just want to be able to share just on my own personal standpoint that any decision for students or staff to return to the school building, knowing that there's risk, great risk, and sacrifice oftentimes that has to be made. That is a sacrifice and a path that I'm willing to walk with those families. So in the event that we are given the opportunity or will be returning into in-person meetings as a board, I stand in solidarity with those students and staff who will be present in the buildings and will be in in-person meetings as much as I possibly can, because I don't believe in putting anybody in a situation that I wouldn't be in myself. And as much as I hate wearing a mask, I do it because I know that it doesn't just protect me, but it protects the people around me as well, and wanting to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence to be present when I can. So I just want to say that because I think I felt that spirit of, this, if you aren't doing it, why should we? And I want to make that known that me as a board member, and I'm only one person, I'm responsible for myself, that I will not put anybody in a situation that I'm unwilling to be in. So with that, thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Certainly, thank you. Ms. Falls.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. I just want to give a huge shout out to the CTE department. I don't know if everybody on the board or was aware that an article on PPS CTE virtual recruitment efforts was featured in the September 2020 issue of Techniques magazine, published by the Association for Career and Technical Education. ACT is the largest national education association dedicated to the advancement of career and technical education. This article was based on some trends, case studies, and class innovations. And it was written by Miss Angela Mike and Miss Cassandra Tobert, and it did focus on the PPS CTE student recruitment initiatives that have been developed and implemented during the pandemic stage. And just, I want to show off a little bit more for them. I don't know I don't even know where my camera is at this point, but this is the article, and they did a tremendous job in representing PPS. So I do want to strongly and loudly congratulate them. I reluctantly, and I should have, I guess I was caught up in the moment. There were things that were in the education system that dealt with CTE projects and stuff. You know what, my mind right now is kind of mushy, but I just wanted to ask Miss Mike if, could you just give an explanation very quickly of what the Little House project is?
Angela Mike, Executive Director, Career and Technical Education. The tiny home is a very small home that can actually be lived in by someone, one or two people. And our schools, Pittsburgh Carrick and Pittsburgh Westinghouse carpentry programs will be building those tiny homes. And we were fortunate to receive grant funds to be able to do that.
Ms. Mike, when you're saying that though, what rooms are in there?
So you have a small living room area, you have a small kitchen, a bathroom and shower, and then upstairs there's a small bedroom area.
Public, do you hear what Miss Mike just said? This is an exciting event. We see PPS, CTE moving forward. There's just going to be a collaboration of carpentry, right?
Yes,
Plumbing.
It's exciting. Carpentry will be working on it, and we'll also include our HVAC program at Alderdice High School, who will also assist with the project at some point with putting the HVAC system in. So yes, there will be some cross collaboration between CTE teachers on this project. And hopefully at the end, we haven't made a decision yet, but we're looking forward to hopefully donating those tiny homes.
Congratulations, Ms. Mike.
Thank you.
And is there anything fascinating you want to tell us about the middle school PPS, Reimagine PPS?
Our Imagine PPS Career Explorations Middle School committee is doing a phenomenal job. Everyone on the team is very energized. It's moving along nicely. Our timeline, we had to push back a little bit based on COVID, but at this point, we are getting a lot of data from working with our Carnegie Mellon graduate students, Carnegie Mellon University graduate students who are helping us with our data and rationale as to why the middle school, especially at this time during the pandemic, is extremely important to be able to expose students to not only careers that we know that there'll be jobs naturally, but new hybrid jobs that come out of the pandemic. So it's really exciting and looking forward to Carnegie Mellon University students presenting all of their data that they've gathered for us on the sectors that we're going to be looking at this week, actually tomorrow.
Thank you, Ms. Mike. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be part of your team. I just want to reiterate, September was Suicide Prevention Month. And we have some statistics that are kind of scary for me, that there's a very high rate of suicide, 15 to 19-year-olds, and a lot of bilingual English and Spanish and other language kids are at risk. I mean, even though it was September that this was suicide prevention, how can we never just not mention it? So, you know, I think I'm hoping that in our health classes and maybe everywhere that we are stressing this. October is also mental health awareness month. And from A+ schools, we got some information from the Pittsburgh Learning Collaborative Family Hotline that deals with some of those issues regarding the mental health, and Teen Block, again, which is sponsored by the Jewish Healthcare Foundation. You know, see, it's just wonderful to acknowledge these partners because we're reaching out more and more in the city, and more people are getting involved with Pittsburgh Public Schools. And also, I would be reneged if I didn't mention that October is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And again, I just want to acknowledge, having been diagnosed with breast cancer, I was very fortunate that my life was in the hands of 3 PPS graduates, 2 physicians and a technician who was my former student. So I think we have a lot to be proud of. And I implore everyone, male and female, to do regular monthly breast checks and to just be observant of your body and follow a regular medical routine. And I do believe, Ms. Wilson, one little thing. I wanted to know that I'm going to be working with Miss Reed on the face coordinators. We have some creative ideas and things we're going to share. So, lots of good things are happening here. And you know what? If anybody's watching their clock, I'm really sorry, but this stuff needs to be heard in public. Thank you very much.
Ms. Wilson, I have some
Go
comments.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to thank everybody who reached out to us, either as the whole board or to a subset of us board members. We heard from many people, whether it was your public testimony, emails, phone calls. I've had contact via social media, other ways. And I'm sure I'm not unique in that. So we are listening to everything, reading everything, and with the volume, I know I haven't kept up with everything. I'm just trying to read everything is my goal. And I know some of you were expecting personal replies from me, and I apologize for those that haven't received one, but it has been but overwhelming in a good way, because it means you're passionate and that you care. And not to say that if you didn't contact me, you don't care, but everybody who cares does deserve a round of applause. Certainly those 9 of us that are serving on the board, plus any of our predecessors, wouldn't be doing this job if we did not care. So we sometimes have to make difficult decisions. And a lot of times the difficult decisions are not easy decisions, but we have to vote based on what we believe is in the best interest or the best way of going forward. Sometimes our decisions are informed by outside data. Sometimes they're informed by input from the constituency. But regardless of what decisions we make, we don't necessarily make them with kind of glibly. Everything weighs heavily on us. And so whether you agree or disagree with any of our decisions tonight or any other night, please realize that they were not made without thought. And I hope that we can all move forward and get folks now in line for doing what we voted on they should be doing. We'll get our D cohort in starting the week of the 9th and move forward with phasing in A and B starting in January. So I do thank everybody again for reaching out. And I thank everybody for the good discussions we had tonight, among my colleagues on different topics, because again, we would not have discussed stuff if we did not care, and we all care. Whether we agree or disagree with each other, that's not the important thing. The important thing is we care. So thank you very much.
Ms. Wilson?
Go ahead, Ms. Edwards. Go ahead.
This has been an interesting week for us. It definitely has been challenging. Definitely, we've heard from a lot of people. We heard from employees, and we care about that. I do agree with that part from Ms. Kennedy, but we have different ways of agreeing. We also heard from the Equity Advisory Committee, and none of the news that they gave us was good. So as we look to move forward in our district, there will be some students who need extra help. Our district at this time is 52% African American, 31% white, 9% multiple, 8% other. How do we educate all children and do it with care? I agree with Ms. Talaferro. If they're going back into the building, so should the board. We should practice what we preach, don't make any excuses, and do the best we can with what we have. But I'd also like to present a challenge. Before I go back into that building, I'm going to voluntarily test myself for COVID-19 to make sure we are not taking that disease in the buildings. as adults, we had a responsibility of being able to go to our PCP or anybody else and making sure we're not that person to carry it into the building and to need to be traced. And we don't need anybody to tell us to do that. We can do that out of an abundance of caution. I'm happy to be on the Board of Education of the Pittsburgh Public Schools. I'm even a retiree and feel like I've been here all my life, but I continue to do good work on behalf of children and families in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or announcements from anybody else?
Ms. Harbin?
Go ahead, Pam.
Thank you. I also am going to be coming into board meetings starting in November in the administration building. And I just want to thank administration for figuring that out, because it is it's a different thing meeting under COVID, and they had to do some planning to make that happen. So I appreciate that. You know, I just want to say that this decision that we made tonight was really, really, really difficult. I think everybody agrees on that. We did hear a lot of testimony that the education that we delivered in the first 9 weeks had a really, rough start because we did something totally new. But, now everybody has kind of gotten into their groove. And I think that that's all the testimonies that we heard and listened to about how well it was going is a real, real testament to the district, I think, and a testament to our teachers and to our parents that have worked really hard together to figure this out. I'm glad that we're taking a phased-in approach to coming back to school, mostly because we're mitigating the risk. The least amount of people in the building is the least amount of risk. So that's number one. But it also gives us a chance to ease in slowly, because all the routines are changing and everything's going to be different. So we're all going to have to work really hard again to figure this out. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank everybody for the work that it takes to make this work. I mean, it's a pandemic, and I don't believe any of our choices were great ones. But at the end of the day, we are PPS, and I'm proud to be part of PPS, and I'm confident that we are going to be able to move into the next semester or to the next quarter and then the next semester and really do well for our families and our students. Thank you.
Anyone else have announcements? All right, then hearing none, could I have a motion and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I beat you, Mrs. Kennedy.
That's okay. It's not a competition.
Oh, come on, have a little humor.
All those in favor of adjourning this meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Okay, motion has carried, and all of you remain safe.